Yes.
Hi everyone. My name is Paula Rerimoy, the GDG co-lead, and today we're celebrating International Women's Day, hosted by WTM Eldoret. And technically, the WTM program is a program that provides visibility, community, and even resources to women in technology. And how we do this is by bringing together women in tech through events and leadership programs. So we're celebrating International Women's Day. And as we all know, it's normally held on 8th March. And our theme today is the theme for this year, is to courage to create. And International Women's Day is technically a global day celebrating the social, economical, cultural, and the political achievements of women across the world. And today we are going to host a beautiful lady called Samantha Kitetu, who is a UX designer at Microsoft. She initially worked at Fuller, and she's also a co-founder of People Who, which is a budding talent directory that aims to connect African designers and researchers to opportunities. Through her diverse background of biology and tech, she came to the desire to create and innovate. Her goal is to create experiences that enable synergy between people and their environment. Outside work, Samantha is also a musician, and she loves teaching kids violin as well as practicing her bass guitar. So that's really awesome. She's very talented. And right now, I will welcome her so that she can have that session with you. So, Karibu, Samantha. Samantha, can you hear me?
Paula, just a moment. We lost her. So
Okay,
it should
so
be.
you can tweet about International Women's Day Eldoret 2021 through the hashtag that you can see on the screen, hashtag IWD Eldoret 2021. And you can also tag at WTM Eldoret and at GDD Eldoret.
Yeah, awesome. So we will be waiting for Samantha. Our speaker. She has some technical hitch, but of course, yeah. So I am Maya Edwin, the co-organizer of GDG Eldoret, and our amazing community has been doing well for the last 3 years. And today we are happy once again to meet and have this awesome conversation with one of an amazing lady in our tech community in Kenya. And that is Samantha. Uh, she's back and yeah, hey, Samantha, we can see you.
Great.
We are happy to see you back. So yeah, you can take up.
Awesome. So Paula has done the intro.
Yeah, sure. Basically, you're live.
All right.
So if you have your presentation, we can get live.
Yeah. Thank
So
you so much.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yep. So thank you so much, Paula, for introducing me. I'll just introduce again. My name is Samantha Kitetu, and I am a UX designer at Microsoft. And it's a huge pleasure to be able to be here on, in honor of International Women's Day, representing women in tech. So thank you guys for inviting me to speak today. Hopefully we won't have any other network issues throughout the presentation, but I will just start things off. So the presentation that I have today is actually called Daring to Dance. And I know it might sound very, abstract or random. Why did I choose this topic? And it's kind of a tech event. But when I was thinking of, what to talk about, I remembered this event that I was invited to in Ghana in 2017 that was called Daring to Dance. And it was all about featuring and bringing to light the, people and leaders within Africa who've done amazing things. When you're thinking about it, life is actually just a dance. And that's what they kept, emphasizing throughout the whole the whole 3-day conference. So these people were the ones who, they seemed very, for example, in a business, in the initial stages, you're telling people that you're going to pour all your capital in it. Of course, people are going to think you don't know what you're doing or you're making the wrong decisions. But for these people, they knew exactly what their heart and what their goals were. So they boldly made those decisions knowing exactly where the vision and where they wanted to go. So it also reminded me of this amazing quote here by Friedrich Nietzsche. And it says, "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." So it just kind of reiterates that point of, as long as you know what exactly you want to do or end up doing, some of those initial decisions could sound very crazy to some people and, maybe not make sense to other people, but to you, it makes sense. At the end of the day, it's just about you choosing to boldly take on those, those moves that you're making in life, in this dance that we call life. So I thought it'd be good to kind of take you through my career journey and kind of where I started versus where I am now, and kind of how the things that I learned along the way that helped me to, to get to where I am. So, 1 second. So here I will start with, it all started actually with the biology degree. So I didn't, as I said, I'm a user experience designer now, but that's not how I started. I actually started with a biology degree from Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And, while I was here, I thought I was going to kind of end up in the medical field. I had a huge passion for healthcare, but soon after I kind of worked in the medical laboratories and, doing some of those procedures, I realized that it wasn't exactly how I wanted to approach, my passion and what I wanted to do in life. But, through this biology degree, I kind of understood that there is a lot more to approaching some of the challenges that we have in our society, but it's not necessarily, for me, it wasn't necessarily being in a laboratory and doing, the actual medical research. So after I actually vividly remember speaking to my sister, with a group of friends, some of them in tech, and I was just wondering, in my mind, I just remember thinking that, this is such a cool space, but, I don't know how exactly I'm going to get into tech, because it wasn't in my background. That's not what I studied. So it was a very interesting time for me after I graduated. And I vividly remember again saying that, it is an interesting space. So why not try it out? Why limit myself to, what I studied, and feeling kind of trapped to applying in jobs that are only limited to what I studied. So that's actually when I started getting into software development, before design. And, this kind of entailed me saying that when I was trying to figure out how to get into the tech space, I said to myself that I'll take at least a year to figure things out, do things, try things, trial and error. So that was just kind of one of the moves that I did that might have seemed pretty random to a lot of people, because it just seemed like I was jumping around to so many things. But, even I can't say I knew exactly what I was ending up in, but it was such, in hindsight, something that I treasure, because I was able to try many things and then also end up to doing something that I love. So with software development, I went through a course called Immobilis, which is a 3-month program after I graduated. I was actually, at that time, I was a university graduate, and the whole class was actually Form 4 leavers. So that was a very interesting experience. I almost told myself, let me just drop out. Maybe this isn't meant for me, but I kind of just persevered through that, and it ended up being a very interesting experience. I built a few apps. I also went through the Google Andela program that also kind of helped me, build those software development skills. And then I remember even thinking during this time, I thought like I was very much into, my mind was very geared towards development, and it was more analytical. So even when my sister at that time was a designer, she used to talk about it. I used to say that's not really something that would interest me. But, there was a lot of things that then through this time when I was doing the software development courses, my mind started opening up to this world of design, that it's just not, colors and things like, just things that I didn't really relate with, but it was so much more than that. There was the research bit, there was, UX in itself is a science. So that's something that I could relate back to what I loved doing. There's so much more than what people perceive design to be, that I kind of figured out in this time. So even during this phase in my journey, I said that maybe development wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Once my mind was opened up to like the design side of everything, it kind of, everything started making sense. All my passions and skills were coming into this one thing that I loved. So now it was just a matter of figuring out how exactly I was going to go about that, So, there wasn't that many positions, and if there were, they're looking for people with more experience, of course. So at this point, actually, there came this 6-month leadership program called ALX, and that's actually what I went to Ghana through. They gave me this opportunity to go to Ghana to represent in some of these different events. So in the leadership program, actually, I was able to explore a lot more skills around even the design aspect, but there was also this amazing product team within the company itself, within ALX, that and it's part of what I will talk about, like what I learned throughout the way. And it was just a matter of being just unashamedly networking and telling them that I want to intern, and just being aggressive with it and saying like, even if you say no, I'm still gonna be an intern here. And they kind of saw that as the passion that I had to learn and to grow, and they eventually onboarded me as a design intern. And that's kind of where I would say my design career really took off, because I had an amazing group of managers that really kick-started that design career for me. And without that, I don't think, without that kind of environment, I don't know if I would have been able to really hone my design skills. And then finally, with where I am now at Microsoft, what we're doing is working across the Microsoft 365 productivity tools like Outlook and, Microsoft Teams, across the people aspect of it, people experience. So, how I came, let me just talk between design and Microsoft, how that came about. So there's a point that I realized, that networking was something that I would have to really capitalize on to kind of, I knew where I wanted to go to, an idea of where I wanted to end up. But the one thing that I knew that I had to do was actually, network pretty aggressively. And that's kind of what I did, even through LinkedIn and reaching out to people and, just being able to interact and understand how this whole ecosystem kind of works. So after ALX, from the internship growing into a junior designer, I eventually moved to a company called Pula, where I was able to really kind of grow and spread my wings as as an actual designer, not a junior designer. And I was able to also practice my management skills through the junior designer that we hired onto the team, which was an amazing experience as well. And after that year of Pula, that's when now the Microsoft opportunity came about late last year, and I just said that this is something that I'm going to pour all my heart and strength into, because it's something that it's a role that I really wanted. And also that opportunity hadn't come before, because Microsoft had never been hiring designers in Kenya. So this was for me, it was an opportunity I couldn't let go or treat very lightly. So the interview process went well. What happened is that, like, in the initial stages, I just said, okay, I'm gonna find out who our hiring manager is for that team. So through the people that I know in Microsoft, they're able to kind of show me to send me the hiring manager's LinkedIn profile, and I immediately added him. That was like the first thing I did, which was I'm sure even he was shocked, how did anyone find me that quick? But it's kind of just that thing of unashamedly networking that I was really riding on. So I added him, and we just started talking on LinkedIn, and he's an amazing guy who's currently my manager right now. And after that chat, went through the interview process, and eventually now landed the job, which is really exciting for me. And people who, I forgot to include this in the introduction, but this is also a company I co-founded with my friend Lewis, and it's all about featuring great people in Africa, so designers and researchers, and featuring them on this directory, so that employers, when they're always looking for design talent in African countries, but we don't really know everyone, So this was kind of our response to be able to link this great talent with great opportunities as well. And it's a very young project, but it's getting a lot of good traction, and we really want to see that grow and continue to make an impact, especially in giving opportunities to people trying to join, to be in the design space and research and everything like that, and find mentors, which is something very important that I had in this journey. So I will go into back to the theme of the topic, which is daring to dance. These are kind of the figuring out the steps to the dance, or in other words, like the things that really helped me, or the things that I learned throughout that that career journey. So the first one is the one that I keep talking about, and that I find helped me a great deal, and that is networking unashamedly. And when I say unashamedly, I really mean that, because a lot of people, when you're thinking of reaching out through LinkedIn to a CEO or manager in this company, it can seem very daunting, or you're thinking that this isn't somebody who would reply to me. But I had to kind of get that out of my mind. Networking isn't something that comes naturally to a lot of people, including myself, but I was just taught the power of that the past 2 years, because there's a lot of opportunities that I received, not by formally applying, but through kind of the relationships that you build over, the network. Even if it's just a conversation here and there, you just have to kind of, and it doesn't have to be transactional all the time. It can just be getting to know this person, getting to understand what they're doing in their respective spaces, and what the kind of impact that they're making. And this usually puts you in their mind when they're thinking, because even for me, if I see a specific role, I have, different people that come to mind automatically, just because of the relationship that I have with them. So it makes it easier for you also in the future to have opportunities come your way, because you've networked very unashamedly in that case. Embrace the things that make you different, especially, I think this one is pretty significant given the context of of this talk and what it represents, in honor of International Women's Day. As a woman in tech, this is something that you have to really embrace. As a woman, sometimes you're surrounded by, you're in a field with a lot of guys, but you can't let your voice be, silenced, or for you to feel like you don't have a say in the table. You have to kind of embrace that part that makes you different. So don't be afraid to push back and fit within the cultural mold, that a lot of companies and organizations kind of put on on people, at the same time, of course, understanding how to work within the certain culture, but just at this, being able to really leverage and embrace the things that make you different. So even if you're not a woman, there's other things that you might have that you might wonder, how can I actually use this to my advantage? But it is something that makes you stand out and makes you unique at the end of the day. Lean on your support system. This is very, very important for me as well. That, without this, I don't think I would have been able to have the the courage to make those moves and say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to pivot and do this. I'm going to take a few months and do this. I think that was kind of the biggest part, because these are people that would cheer you on no matter, even if they don't really understand what you're doing, they are kind of there to cheer you on and to be there for you, and to kind of remind you that like you're not doing this alone, and you're also supported by a group of people. So whoever it is, it could be, at the base of it, family and friends for sure. And then let's say in this space, I think mentorship is something that's very important. That if you have the chance or the opportunity to connect to a mentor, that's something that helped me greatly. They're able to play, give me such amazing opportunities and build my skills in ways that I would have never been able to do alone, honestly. Like it was probably one of the best things or the highlights throughout the journey. And then the final one here is to go out of your comfort zone. So through all those like twists and turns, in your respective space, this is something that you have to be kind of okay doing, at least, once in a while. Maybe not to this extent of the picture on the left, but if that's your thing also, that's great. But just not being afraid to try new things, to even, let's say, if you're a developer, even just trying a new language, maybe you're thinking that your work requires you to use this, this, and this, but you want to try and just learn this other skill that would, it would just be for fun, and you can try other things. I would say just don't be afraid to do things, and no matter what stage you are in life and in your career, this is something that I kind of hang on to, and that enables me to keep going, and, in other words. And so remember, in whatever you're doing, just dare to dance. So this is kind of the theme that I like going back to, thinking of it as a dance, and just, going at it boldly, and just chasing after what you have as a vision. And thank you for that. So if there's any questions and answers, this wasn't a very long one, but it's something that I'm very passionate about as well. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Awesome. So if you have any questions, just post your question on the comment section and we will take them up. So maybe if I just start off the Q&A session, Samantha, you mentioned something on leaning on your support system, and the aspect of mentorship came to mind. Can you just talk about how mentorship played a role in your career, and even when you were transitioning fully into design, how did mentorship play that role?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that I'm very passionate about. So there's a lot of times in my career, it's been a blessing to have managers who've become my mentors and cheerleaders along this journey. But I've also had mentors who I've been able to get through, again, networking. And this is kind of something that, let's say, from the beginning of my design career, I had no idea how to even make a portfolio, for example, and what employers are looking for in jobs. So what we do with my mentors at that time is kind of sit down and just look through different portfolios, understand where my skill set is, what kinds of projects I'm doing, and also just be challenged. The biggest thing that mentorship also does is challenging you to think beyond what you already know. And I think that's something very important when you're looking at the bigger picture for your career. So, with the few mentors that I've had, there's one actually the co-founder for People Who, we used to just sit down and think of different ideas around, let's say, how we can get the design community more involved and more united, and it would help me really think about this entire community, the communal aspect of the design community that we have. And he would also send me books, and it was really amazing because without that, I think and also connect me to different opportunities. And then also my first and second design managers, it was very interesting because everything that I would turn in the context of work, there's a lot of things where I think I have gotten it or understood, and then they'd be like, actually try and redo this or do it like this, rethink this kind of strategy. And it really helped me understand how to be detail oriented and to not be in the comfort zone. And I remember that being something very important. So having mentors that challenge you and push you beyond your own boundaries, I think is very important in the journey. And there's so many ways of also getting mentors. It could be through LinkedIn, it could be through other people who might know people that can mentor you and things like that. So just leverage those kinds of networks, Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So just from what you're saying, sometimes, and I insist on the career change mainly because personally I'm transitioning and I'm just trying to find my footing in my new career path. How ideally would you deal with imposter syndrome? Because I understand having the aspect of mentorship plays a big role in overcoming imposter syndrome, but there are instances where, like you mentioned, when you are in the immobility class, you find out that you're the odd one out and you feel like you don't belong where you are. So how did you personally deal with imposter syndrome? Because honestly, it's something that everyone, I'm very sure, battles with every day. And even if you look at someone on LinkedIn and you want to reach out, you don't even know how to start. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something even up to this day, there's a lot of instances where that imposter syndrome will creep in. And my previous CEO said something very, very important. She's also a woman and building a great company. That's right, when I worked at Kula. So she said, imposter syndrome, especially as a woman, and I think it's something important to bring out in, in this time. It's something that is kind of ingrained in us. It's like from a young age, we were kind of taught how, to not talk too loudly, and sometimes our ideas weren't always taken up as truth or just held with as much regard. And it's kind of something that we've grown up with. And I found that really profound because as much as there's some things that I can work on, even projects, and I know like initially they're good, and then at some point I'm like, I don't think that's actually good. Let me just, throw that away. But again, my mentor told me it'd be something that really helps to, to deal with imposter syndrome is kind of write down the things that have been, like literally physically write down the things that have been, that, the accolades and achievements that you've had in your work. And whenever you have that, just to be able to have this record, whenever the imposter syndrome creeps in, you can actually reference it and say, to kind of remind yourself that I've actually been able to achieve this, and this, and this, things like that. So I think that's something, it's a practice that I have gotten in the habit of doing. It might seem a bit awkward, because of course taking compliments isn't that easy, but it really does help you remember that you are good at what you're doing. And the reason maybe you've been hired for certain projects or for certain roles is because people have believed that you are good at what you do, So, yeah.
Awesome. So we still have more questions in our comment section, and we'll start with Murphy's Law. He says, he asks, what's your bucket list career goal? What's your bucket list career goal?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've always been kind of the person that whenever you ask something like, what do you see for yourself in 5 years? I never really have an answer. But I think something that I am very passionate about is building teams. And I know even right now, as I'm in Microsoft, I would still, in a number of years' time, I can't really put a number to that, but I would love to be able to build a company from zero to, having a design team and, something, even such a very young company that has little structure, to be able to play a part in putting in the design structures and the products and bringing that team culture together. I think that's something that I really enjoy doing. Right now Microsoft is really amazing, and it's teaching me a lot about how management is should be done and things like that. So I think it's just, I would say, to be very vague, just to be able to build a team in whatever context, to be able to build a team, build products with that team, and especially having, junior designers keep being promoted and growing in their career, I think would be amazing for me.
Okay, awesome. I hope, Murphy, that answer is satisfied. Hello, Kitetu, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you well. So the next question is from my Edwin, and he's asking what really motivated you from biology to tech, transitioning from the field of biology to tech.
Yeah, so when I was doing, during my undergrad, I wasn't those people that kind of, I wasn't very, I didn't do a lot of things outside the 4-year degree itself. So I didn't get to explore a lot of different opportunities, internships, and things like that. I kind of just took the course as it was, and then I finished. But when towards those last years was kind of when I realized that there's a very, unfortunately, like in Kenya, there's a very limited kind of scope to work, within your biology degree. And I felt that, and I'm not saying that if you have a biology degree, it's like a limited scope, but what I felt that I just felt that there was a lot more that I could do with my skills that I wasn't able to do, let's say, in the medical labs. There's a lot of my creativity that was not being utilized, and a lot of what I wanted to do was not fully being utilized while in the medical labs. So that's when I kind of started understanding the different companies and startups, and I was looking at all these amazing startups. I remember the first ones that really resonated with me were Brick and Ushahidi at that time, and I was like, wow, I have to find a way to kind of be in that space, because you're seeing these companies that are doing such amazing projects, and you're wondering, what skills do I have to actually plug in, and this is kind of where tech really, I just knew I had to step into that world and figure out one of these skills had to be something that I took up, because that was the only way I was going to end up in those companies and building those products, So I would say that was kind of the motivation for me at that time.
Okay, and just to draw up from Maya's question, how are there things that you still borrow from the biology field and apply in your design world every single day when you go to work or when you're at work?
Yeah, the biggest part that I got from my biology degree is actually the research bit, and that has not stopped. So just being able to be an analytical researcher, through qualitative and quantitative research, that's kind of what I remember. I was a bit bored of it during the undergrad, but the way I get to utilize and apply this research in this context, with being able to interact with users and things like that, and other people, it's just made it so much more exciting. But I'm able to kind of draw those research methods that I learned and be able to apply it in this context. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing from the biology undergrad.
Thanks. That's really inspiring. Okay, so to the next question, Mila is asking, while daring to dance, does it sometimes scare you?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think even in hindsight, there's a lot of things, let's say from that year that I took off to kind of understand the tech space and what I wanted to do in it. It was a very scary year because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and neither did I have the skills. But it was just a matter of using and trusting that, first of all, you have the strength to go through that, and um, knowing how to. It was the one time where the system really came into play because people were sending things my way. You should try out this course. That would be really interesting if you want to be a developer. Apply for this, apply for this. So I think that really helped, and also the fact that even if you fail, another thing is to not being afraid to fail, because there were a few times where I can remember failing and just wondering if I'm actually doing what I'm meant to be doing. Maybe I should just go back to biology. That's what I studied for 4 years. Why am I in this field? So that fear sometimes creeps in, and it's just something that you have to remind yourself. It's like the imposter syndrome thing, but just reminding yourself that you are good at what you do. And yeah, things will always have a way of working themselves out. You can fail and go back. You can fail. You can manage to do it well, and then continue, and it's fine. Everything is just trying and error.
Okay, awesome. So we have a question from David Liu, and ideally, I think this question would be in the best position to answer it. So we'll just pass it to him once he's back on. But just to keep the conversation going, could you describe your typical day at work in Microsoft?
Yeah, sure. So with Microsoft, it's a very kind of autonomous environment where you understand what exactly you are doing, and you understand what the team is doing, what the product is meant to do. And I don't think autonomous is the word in this sense. What I meant is that you're given a lot of autonomy, but you're working within a very tight knit team. Yeah, in that sense. So there's no micromanaging. It's kind of for you to start the day when you're able to, so around 9, 10, and then a lot of times from when I started, the biggest projects have been taking, let's say, Outlook for web, translating that into Mac. There's a lot of things within the design language and guidelines that you have to adhere to, but keeping the experience the same, coherent, in other words. So the work itself takes up, let's say, 3 to 4 hours, depending on the what exactly I'm working on. But then I will also have one thing that they do encourage, and I love, is taking time to also learn. There's a lot of things, even coming into Microsoft, I questioned whether I knew how to design, even though we were using the same tools and software. It was such being used as at such a robust level that it made me really scared, But a number of hours in my day is also spent just learning and understanding how to use, the different softwares, research methods, and things like that in my work, because that's something that's very valued within the team. Yeah. And then we'll also have a lot of, sorry, I forgot. We have a lot of design reviews and syncs to, our team is like based in Washington, Norway, India, and Kenya, and some in Berlin as well. But we have these meetings within the week that brings us all together to kind of talk about what we're doing and help each other out, and give reviews and critiques, and things like that, and just have fun as well. So yeah.
Okay. So on that, I'd just like to post a question on team collaboration. And as developers, most people work alone and they work into the wee hours of the night. So there's that lone ranger kind of thing. But then the work environment is completely different out here. So how often do you work in teams while in your workspace, and why is it important?
Yeah, that's very important, especially in this time for COVID. I think it's something that we've had to very intentionally work on. So for example, like I said, the meetings that we have during the week, those are the ones that bring all of us together. So the designers and at times if you're working on a specific project, you'll have these meetings that bring the product managers with the developers, and then now you just work together and ask any questions that you'll have, and just be able to help each other grow in the project that you're working on. So for example, for Microsoft, we use GitHub. So everything that for version control, and that's where everything that we have for any comments about the product, anything that the product manager has or the developers have, we just put it all on that on the GitHub issue. So that's because we also acknowledge a lot of people are coming from different time zones. We don't want to always have meetings, but we always have a way of going back and raising questions and tickets and keeping each other in the loop for everything that we're doing. So maybe it's not a matter of like opening a video call and working on on things together, but finding a rhythm that works for both designers, developers, and product managers. It's something that we found very important.
Okay. So just to help someone out there who's trying to be a UX or a UI designer, could you just list a couple of skills that one would need to have to be a designer, and also the kind of software tools they would need to master on? And yeah, technically that's maybe that's what we can talk about.
Sure. So in terms of the skills, one thing that really, and I know a lot of employers also look for this, is just like critical thinking and analytical thinking as well. Just being able to, you get this problem, but how much are you able to dissect it and understand what the root of it? So of course that's where the research skills come in as well. So being able to hone in on your qualitative and quantitative research and ask relevant questions that get you the answers that you need. And of course, as much as the design industry, you can focus on research. A lot of times it's advised to also have visual design skills. So I would say interface design is a UI design would be a crucial skill to have. As this is at least a basic understanding, where even if you're doing an assignment, you can kind of present it in a visual format as well. People want to see that you can translate these concepts that are very abstract into things that are tangible, into digital products. So at the end of the day, that's something that's really important to have. The tools that would be recommended for that is definitely Figma. That's like the biggest design tool or software that people use. And if you're into now graphic design as well, there's the Adobe Suite products, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and things like that, so that you can also integrate back into Figma into your UI designs, for example. And then for user testing and research, there's a site called usertesting.com. There's Lookback. There's very many things that I've used in the past and now that have helped with putting this entire skill into context. And I think in terms of I've said both skills and the software.
Okay. So you mentioned something. You mentioned that you use GitHub or technically version control with your teams. So I'm wondering, how does UX UI designer use GitHub or Bitbucket? Because okay, my information, my knowledge is it's mostly for code. So how do UI UX designers
Yeah.
use version control?
Yeah, for GitHub, we mainly use it for we use the issues feature. So we're not actually writing the code, but what we're doing is let's say this thing like a product feature that needs to be done in 3-4 weeks. So the product manager or the person who's kind of in charge of that will raise that ticket or the issue on GitHub and include the people who are going to be working on it. So the designers, the developers, and that's where now, for me as a designer, when I've gotten through V1 of that feature, I'm going to save it as a, even on a PNG, like a picture image format, and then I'll just upload it to GitHub. Very easy. I'm not writing any code, and then I'll just put the Figma link, which will have all the the code that also developers can see. So once those two elements are there and I kind of talk through it's very important to explain the thought process and what led you to making some of those design decisions so that the people that we're showing that to can also understand, the reasoning behind what they're looking at. And then they'll go on the Figma file. We can collaborate on some of these things. They'll leave comments and things like that. And then now again, V2 will be posted again until we get something that we're content with. And then finally, when that issue is done, the issue itself, the PM will close the issue and then we'll actually ship the feature, for the developers to build. Yeah. So we use it in a bit of a different way. It's not the code portion of it for us.
I think I've learned something today. So just the last question, how do you get to achieve a work-life balance?
Oh yeah, that's very important. It's funny because the past week I've actually been working on a project that addresses this exactly, because I think especially with COVID, a lot of people, including myself, have found it really hard to switch off. So sometimes I find myself coming back to my desk casually at like 9 p.m., just doing some little design things. And I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? But one thing that I had to get into a habit of doing is finding my, kind of the rhythm outside of what I'm working on at home, like my actual work. So whether it's working out, just things that I actually enjoy doing, or, spending time with my husband or my family and friends that I can actually integrate into my day that would enable me to step out by force and, come back to work, even if it's something in the middle of the day for an hour, then come back and get to work, or if it's after work. It's just something that I had to intentionally I had to be intentional about just scheduling my day where it's not just work. There's all these other things that I can kind of integrate. Although, of course, now with COVID, I don't know how much that would be necessary. So I think the biggest thing you can do is also just like on your calendar, make sure you put focus times and times that no one can contact you, out of office after 5 p.m., for example. That I think usually helps a lot of people as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So how can we get to connect with you, Samantha? Be it via social media, or how can people out here get to
Yeah, I think
connect?
through LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. My name is also just the same as it is on here. It's Samantha Kitetu. And Twitter is also open, but I think the LinkedIn connection and email would be best. So my email is samgatwerim@gmail.com. I don't know if that will be typed out here, but those two methods are kind of the best way to connect with me.
Okay. I am sure we can provide those details later on the comments section. So is there anything you'd like to tell us before we wrap up, or to tell the audience before we wrap up?
I think it just goes back to what I spoke about. It's just, in your respective fields, whether it's music, tech, journalism, just go at it boldly, not being afraid to let your voice be heard, or to feel that you're too much for certain spaces. Just go at it boldly and not being afraid to to make that impact. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Samantha, for the time you have given us. I think I learned a lot. I hope the audience also learned a lot. And I'm so sure many of us are going to apply on what we talked about in advancing their career goals. Yeah, so thank you so much, Samantha.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula, and thank you so much for having me as well. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the future, it can be an in-person event. But this is great, also.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So for our announcements, I'd like to encourage everyone to join us on our new platform, GDG Eldoret. You can just Google it or type it somewhere and you just see, and it will ask you to sign up. So you just sign up so that you can join on the platform, and you'll get to know the latest events and also have access to developer resources and opportunities that we have. We have an exciting one for anyone who is into cybersecurity. We recently announced a partnership with Cyber Talents for anyone who wants to get into the cybersec field. So make sure you just go to that platform or follow us on our social media platforms at GDG Eldoret and at WTM Eldoret, so that you can have access to this announcement. So thank you so much and see you guys. Bye.